perspective when it comes to Shannon Sharpe in this entire lawsuit. Now, we've got Law and Crime. They're going to be talking about what actually went on with Shannon Sharpe being in court, only represented by one attorney, and apparently Gabby on her side, Jane Doe as they're calling her, no one showing up from her side. Not Tony Buzbee, not her. It was just Shannon Sharpe's attorney and the judge. That's it. Let's see what was going on here.
In a $50 million rape and abuse lawsuit, Shannon Sharpe's legal counsel showed up, but the plaintiff's legal team, not so much. The surprise no-show raises some serious questions about the future of a case already loaded with explosive allegations and high-stakes drama. We are going to break down how all of this unfolded, what could come next in a lawsuit that is tangled in celebrity controversy, and what we should be thinking about as we talk next moves for Shannon Sharpe. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Shout out to Jesse Weber over at Law and Crime.
The first hearing in the explosive $50 million civil lawsuit against Pro Football Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe took an unexpected twist on July 9th, 2025, and that is when apparently no attorney representing the plaintiff showed up at the Clark County District Court out in Nevada. Unusual, potentially damaging. We're going to discuss that. But you have to start asking questions about the direction, maybe the stability of a lawsuit that's delivered more than its fair share of surprises since it first grabbed.
You know what? While we're talking about this, let me just go ahead and show you guys what this lawsuit looks like. And sorry to interrupt, Jesse, but we got to read this introduction. And I think this will clear up a lot of things for you in the comment. Mr. Vegas, I know you weren't familiar with the lawsuit itself. So listen to this introduction. It's pretty short, sweet, and to the point. And I want you to hear what is being alleged. And then combine that with what Shannon Sharpe says we're going to be able to see, not us, but a jury. And let me know what you think about the validity of this civil lawsuit. All right, here we go. A woman can say yes to consensual intercourse with a man 99 times. But when she says no, even once, that no means no. Defendant Shannon Sharpe, a man who is accustomed to getting what he wants, completely fails to understand this basic concept. After many months of manipulating and controlling the plaintiff, a woman more than 30 years younger than he, and repeatedly threatened to brutally choke and violently slap her, Sharpe refused to accept the answer no and assaulted the plaintiff, despite her sobbing and repeated screams of no. Again, Shannon Sharpe is not denying this. Shannon Sharpe's argument is she wanted it. Oh, man. Defendant Shannon Sharpe is a 56-year-old former NFL superstar. He claims to be one of the most successful sports media personalities in the country. The plaintiff is a young woman in her early 20s. In 2023, just a couple of years ago, the plaintiff was working out at a gym in LA when Shannon Sharpe approached her for the first time, allegedly. Previously, Doe, we'll call her Gabby, had noticed Shannon Sharpe watching her during her workouts. At this time, Gabby was just 19 years old. It gets worse, guys. It gets worse. At the time, she did not know who he was, only that he was an older man ogling her at the gym. Gabby could tell Sharpe was much older than her. She found him physically intimidating. Oh, come on. Okay, stop. Eventually, he introduced himself. At his determined instance, she gave him her number. Over the next couple of weeks, Sharpe incessantly pursued the plaintiff. He constantly approached her at the gym and attempted to contact her frequently with phone calls and text messages asking her to meet up, unwilling to take no for an answer. Eventually, the plaintiff gave in and agreed to meet Shannon Sharpe outside of the gym. However, before doing so, Sharpe demanded that Gabby sign a non-disclosure agreement or an NDA, something the plaintiff found a bit concerning. She wondered why Sharpe was so insistent on her signing an NDA. She refused. Despite his repeated efforts, Shannon done effed up. She refused time and time again to sign, and eventually Shannon Sharpe dropped the issue and invited her into his home. What followed was the beginning of a rocky, consensual relationship that lasted nearly 2 years. The relationship was very unequal. Sharpe is more than 30 years older is considerably wealthier, is physically much larger, and exponentially stronger. Sharpe is famous and has power. Plaintiff and Sharpe saw each other on his terms and on his schedule, as often as 4 times a week. Over time, the plaintiff began to see Sharpe's true nature. She found him to be dishonest about his whereabouts. He would lie about seeing other women while insisting to her that he and she were exclusive. He often manipulated her at times, being sweet and loving to get what he wanted, and at other times being angry and aggressive to achieve his goals. She discovered over time that Sharpe was extremely emotional and possessed an uncontrollable temper. He displayed the characteristics of a true narcissist. He wielded his power, his influence, and his celebrity to control the plaintiff and get exactly what he wanted, whether he wanted it whenever he wanted it, all while the jealousy guarding what he considered his for himself. Now, listen to this. This just happened recently. By October 2024, Sharpe's behavior had grown progressively worse, according to the lawsuit, beyond anything the plaintiff had experienced with him before. At this point, she was done. He was insistent upon recording their adult activities, sometimes without her knowledge. Sharpe was also sharing the videos with others without her permission or knowledge. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Sharpe would repeatedly tell Gabby that he wanted to do things to her that would make no other man want her. By this point, Sharpe was no longer able to credibly maintain that the relationship was exclusive. He had at this point accidentally or purposely to advance his career, went live on Instagram while having intercourse with another woman. Y'all remember his thing with Michelle? Sharpe flew into fits of anger when the plaintiff noted his infidelity to their relationship, or called him out about his extraneous activities. What had once been manipulation, control, and intimidation now became something more dangerous and sinister. Sharpe even figured out how to get into Gabby's apartment complex without her permission. Sharpe made it clear that what Gabby wanted was of no moment that Sharpe would get what he wanted when he wanted it. In October 2024, Sharpe violently assaulted and put it in her butt 2 different times in Las Vegas, Nevada, blatantly ignoring her request for him to stop. He did it again in January. Not January of 2024, January of this year, 6 months ago. Wow. The plaintiff left Nevada to temporarily escape defendant Shannon Sharpe. She now seeks justice through his actions and other means. The plaintiff seeks compensatory and punitive damages in this matter in excess of $50 million. So there's the background for you. That's what she's alleging what happened. We reviewed this full lawsuit in another video. If y'all want to watch it, I'll leave a link to that video in the description for you. So now let's go back, knowing that, to what they're saying over on Sidebar. Yikes.
Having the headline several months ago. Now, before we dive into the latest developments, got to do a little bit of a rewind here. So the lawsuit that was filed on April 20th, 2025 by prominent Houston attorney Tony Buzbee on behalf of an anonymous woman in her 20s contains graphic allegations against the former NFL tight end turned media superstar Shannon Sharpe. And the complaint alleges that Sharpe engaged in what is essentially a pattern of sexual violence and psychological abuse during what began as a consensual relationship with the plaintiff, who, by the way, is apparently more than 30 years his junior. According to court documents, the plaintiff met Sharpe at a Los Angeles gym when she was just 19 years old, and the lawsuit claims that Sharpe, quote, incessantly pursued the young woman, demanding her phone number, eventually asking her to visit his home. And most disturbingly, possibly, is the filing alleges that Sharpe required this woman to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, before their first meetings, although this request is something she repeatedly refused. Now, the relationship, according to her, allegedly turned abusive, verbally screaming at or berating her, violent sexual episodes, control. But the most graphic allegation describes Sharpe allegedly sexually assaulting and raping her, including ignoring her screams and refusing to wear a condom. Now, the lawsuit also claims that Sharpe secretly recorded their intimate encounters, shared the videos without her consent.
No bueno.
But maybe the most chilling aspect of this are the alleged threats that were captured in audio recordings that were released by Tony Buzbee. In fact, in one clip, a voice identified as Sharpe's can be heard saying, "If you say that word one more time, I'm going to bleep and choke the bleep out of you when I see you." Now, the woman, allegedly the plaintiff in the case, then can be heard saying she doesn't want that, while the voice resembling Sharpe responds, "Yes, you do. I don't think you have a choice in the matter." So,
guys, this is so bad. This is so bad. Settle this, Shannon. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Oh, God.
Comes a question, do you take that literally? Or, I think the other way of looking at it from the defense's point of view would be, this is role-playing of some kind. Well, Sharpe has adamantly denied all the allegations through his attorney, or one of his attorneys, Lanny Davis, who called the lawsuit, quote, a classic definition of blackmail. And the former NFL star took to Instagram shortly after the lawsuit became public, posting a video where he called the allegations, quote, a shakedown, promised to fight back aggressively, quote, what they're getting is sued, Sharpe declared in the since-deleted post. And he even suggested that Buzbee planned to release edited portions of a sex tape and challenged him to release the full recording.
This is a shakedown. That video should actually be 10 minutes or so. Hey, Tony, instead of releasing your edit, put the whole video out. I don't have it, or I would myself. You know what happened, and you're trying to manipulate the media. The encounter in question took place during the day at her invitation, and now that appears to be a deliberate setup. What they're getting is sued for defamation and trying to take me down. My career is all about real talk and honesty. I know my family and fans know exactly what this is about.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it sounds bad. It sounds bad in general. Again, not something I'm interested in personally, but when it comes to this lawsuit, it's just the odds are stacking up against Shannon Sharpe. Let's just be real. God, it's not looking great for him. He sent those text messages. You can hear the audio. They've got a video of her saying, no, no, no. Settle this thing, man.
And I'm going to be out there telling you whatever I need to say, just like I always do. I love all you guys. Thanks.
So now let's talk a little law here. So typically, defendants in lawsuits, in federal lawsuits, are given 21 days to respond with an answer once they're provided the summons and complaint. An answer being where they go through the allegations in the complaint line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and they admit, deny, say they don't have enough information. It's a response. And, you know, what's interesting about this is, according to reporting from the New York Post, it doesn't seem that Sharpe has legally responded as of yet. Can't really confirm that, but that's what the reporting seems to suggest. And we'll talk more about that when we get into it. But first, I want to bring on a special guest to help me break down the latest, including what happened in this hearing. I am joined by sports attorney Dan Lust, professor, New York Law School. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for taking the time.
Always good to see you, Jesse. Happy to help.
Thanks. So what are the typical timelines for a high-profile civil lawsuit like this to progress from filing to resolution? Am I right that it's 21 days to respond? I mean, is it typical? How does it work for people who don't know how civil lawsuits typically work?
Yeah, I mean, this is like law school basics, right? We're talking about how a lawsuit started, right? There's the filing of the complaint. There's the service of the complaint. So, you know, certainly depends on what court you're in, what state you're in. But generally, right, once you are served with the complaint, sometimes you have 21 days. Sometimes you add some more time if it's personal service versus a mailing, right? But either way, once a commencement papers are started, you have a set amount of days to respond to that. Otherwise, you risk being held in default, either by plaintiff's counsel's motion or sometimes, right, particularly in federal court, something like sua sponte, right? And that's a fun Latin term where the judge themselves decides to hold you in default. So it is somewhat odd, and I know, Jesse, there's probably more questions than answers. We get to this hearing, and we have no response from defendant, but we also have a no-show from plaintiff. So it's not really your typical setting how we're starting this debate and this case, a very high.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about this. We don't have an official response yet, which is strange. All we have is this video from Shannon Sharpe. We don't have, it would be nice to see a response of them laying out, hey, here's what really is going down. We just have the video. That's it.
Profile case. That I wouldn't say this is following the normal playbook, so to speak.
By the way, as we're talking about a big lawsuit like this, how could I not talk about experts in the litigation field? Morgan & Morgan.
Shout out to Morgan & Morgan.
It's interesting that apparently a lawyer didn't show up and why that might have happened. But going back to this, if it's real, if the reporting's true, and this was filed in April, I mean, we're already in July. We would say 21 days, 30 days. I didn't see anything. Yeah, I didn't see anything about him getting some sort of extension. He might have. But what would be the reason to not prepare an answer? And would there be a situation where the court says, question. We're going to allow the case to go forward? You're not in default. Just file an answer as soon as you can. I mean, it just seems strange that based on the reporting, I think it was from the New York Post a few days ago, that they said there was no legal response yet. Can you give any insight into that?
That's so strange.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I tell my clients, right, like the wheels of justice turn very slowly, and sometimes you don't really have an answer, right? And sometimes just, hey, what is stopping these attorneys from just kind of pushing the case out indefinitely? So behind the scenes, judges are graded on their own rubrics about how quickly they're adjudicating cases. So no judge is in the business of just allowing a case to be we'll say extended indefinitely. And judges, part of their job, in addition to getting a decision on the merits or pushing the parties toward a settlement, is to push the parties in some direction and not just kind of lay out there. And Jesse, just I guess like strategically, when Lanny Davis came onto the case, he came in very aggressively. And I know we spent a lot of time in our last conversation talking about making public of certain settlement negotiations. But Lanny Davis also said that Sharpe was going to go on the aggressive with his own defamation case. So, I just from the initial posturing of the case, Sharpe is not taking an aggressive standpoint. Quite the contrary. He's just kind of playing wait and see, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, if people have questions as to why Sharpe and his legal team, and I think there's some new lawyers involved now, it's certainly a changing of the strategy, which on day one was let's go 100 miles per hour, let's go on the offensive. And now you don't really file an answer. It's safe to say you're not.
Yeah, because they don't have a case. And I was confused at why they were moving the way they were moving, just coming out and being so blatant and strong against what actually happened and what went down. I mean, if Shannon Sharpe has the evidence, if he has proof of his innocence, then you think he would want to put it out there, other than a video, other than his attorney doing some interviews and saying, Tony Buzbee doing this thing, this girl, they were in a relationship. We've seen tons of text messages already. We've heard the audio of the phone calls. We've seen Shannon Sharpe apologize and say, I'm sorry y'all had to see this, but we were just doing our thing. And no written response yet. It's not looking great. It's like they're waiting for somebody else to. Nothing.
Is that typical in the sense, like you could say, okay, well, there's a change in circumstances. We're going to come off aggressive first, but things can change. It's not necessarily that there was a mistake made with that comment. I mean, there could be a situation where you say thing one day and then there's a change in circumstances the next, right? I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying. And I believe Lonnie Davis had talked about how Shannon Sharpe had rejected a settlement offer. And like you said, we talked about that. Was that wise to make that public? But I guess there could be maybe just a reason why there seems to be a change.
I mean, I'll give you my best guess, right? So it looks like Lanny Davis, for we'll say best case scenario, is one of now a number of lawyers involved on Sharpe's side. So it could be, right, you have new representation, they want to slow things down, they want to just change the gear, right? The other, just I want to throw this out there, and again, you and I are trying to make sense of what is pretty much a barren docket at this point. Why, and certainly on the plaintiff side, people are not, this is not a foreign concept. Plaintiff's attorneys in a case like this will generally work off of some contingencies. So they'll get paid assuming plaintiff side wins, right? They're not generally working off of a billable hour system. Very different on the defense side, where defense counsel are getting paid by the hour, right? Billable hours. So if Sharpe's side were to take an aggressive standpoint on a defense case, for the most part, again, we're not aware of what Sharpe's arrangement is here, but you'd be paying attorneys by the hour to take an aggressive standpoint on that defense. Now, hypothetically, Jesse, let's say the parties, since you and I last spoke, right, at the end of April, beginning of May, whenever that was, let's say the parties have made some additional traction towards settlement. And as Sharpe's lawyer, Davis, said, at one point they were making some progress. So let's say over the last 2 months or so, they've made some progress. That would be a reason to slow down these court proceedings. So Sharpe's side is not racking up the legal hours, speeding a case along in terms of starting the process of discovery and getting a deposition schedule. And maybe they're having some real substantive momentum of moving this forward. That's also a plausible explanation. It's not just a changing of the guard. It could be some progress is being made behind the scenes that you and I wouldn't see.
Yeah, but still, waiting that long to file a response doesn't make sense to me, just from a legal standpoint. And now things have settled down, they're ramping back up. The last thing we remember is Shannon Sharpe saying, guys, it's not what it looks like. Let me know what y'all think in the comments and in the chat.